Regarding disclosure, the issues of free energy technology and such, is this a proper picture? It seems that the direction really of disclosure, looking down the road, is one of greater consciousness. Is that true?
Right. Right.
So that's what you're really looking for.
Well, yeah, he's asking, is the big picture about disclosure is greater consciousness. It's not just greater, it's the correct consciousness that can support a peaceful application of this. And also a new way of, as Einstein said, no problem is ever solved by the consciousness that created it. And the problem of endless war and the problem of taking every advance at technology and turn it into a new type of club to hit someone in the head with, this is a big problem. And as this colonel in the Air Force pointed out, these technologies would enable someone in another country to deliver a payload in less than a second from the Middle East to Washington. Think about it. Okay, so all technologies can be weaponized. Now, in covert programs, they already have been. But so on the one hand, we have to acknowledge that there's this secrecy. It needs to be overseen properly. But the disclosure is when the work begins. When this information is fully out there, including the technologies beginning to come out, we're going to have to completely change the way the world thinks and works. Now, it's going to have to be a world of collective security, where if there's anyone, anywhere on the face of the earth, that weaponizes and tries to use these technologies for harm, they are stopped by all means necessary. And I mean all means necessary. Could we do it? Yes. Now, do we already have the means to monitor and enforce that? Yes. Why haven't we? Because they want to subvert world peace by keeping endless war going. Because war, for the recorded history of the human race, has been the central organizing principle of every city, state, and nation. And they don't know what to do. How do you organize people if all of a sudden there's world peace? So, an interplanetary peace. So, I always point out, we don't want to have a unified, peaceful world in order to have interplanetary war. Now, this is the going backwards a big step, not forward. So, but that is the biggest jump in human consciousness we've ever seen. And it is a spiritual and social, psychological issue more deeply than it is a technological or information one. Absolutely, 100%. Yes, sir.
There's so many people now worldwide working on zero-point energy. It almost feels like the genie's out of the bottle and the forces that be cannot possibly contain all of them. What is your view? Are any of them close?
Yes, so there's so many people working on zero-point and similar approaches, and the genie's getting out of the bottle. Can they contain all of them? And is anyone close? Yes, they can contain them. And yes, there are people close. In fact, there are people who have them. Let me give you one example. We believe there's a fellow named Rossi in Italy who has a device that generates apparently over unity excess energy and heat. Although no one knows the mechanism of action, he's keeping it a trade secret. Very big and probably fatal error. The people I've met with who have developed these systems have all either taken it to their graves or had them confiscated before they can get out to the public significantly because of some central strategic errors that have to do with the idea that they're going to be able to handle that technology like you would a new app or a new Silicon Valley computer system. When you're dealing with something like this, it has to be done completely openly, open source, and you have to have millions of people know what's happening in real time. Stan Meyer took his knowledge to the grave. You know, if you look at the workshop I did about a year ago here, is that there have been literally hundreds or maybe thousands of people who have discovered this same effect. And they've all made the same set of predictable errors based on their handling the technology as if it were conventional technology when it is not. And so I would say, yes, there are people out there who are working on it. Some, I believe, have. I have a friend at Stanford University who knows a man at the National Security Agency who confided that they're tracking what Rossi is doing very carefully, which indicates to me where there's smoke, there's fire. If Rossi's listened, heads up. So, but strategically, tactically, and strategically, he's handling it in a way that guarantees failure. Because by keeping it tightly held, coveting, trying to keep it secret, overly concerned with monetizing the technology instead of getting it out, he is going to step into every booby trap that's been set out there. And the chances that it will make its way out to the public is infinitesimally small. And that's not just true of Rossi's technology, but of every other person who has that same idea. Again, it's because the system exists to hoover up, suck up all those technology and sequester them. Now, I just recently learned in the last couple months of a man who was working with a group of investors who was funding a man up in New York at a university, a professor, a physicist, who had discovered how to take just natural gas and burn it so there was 0 carbon and 100% utilization. That technology was going through the second round of funding and was bought out by a division of the Army and black shelved. This is fairly recent. There was another technology he was working on dealing with batteries. And as you know, like Tesla Motors has like 900 pounds of lithium batteries in that car. It's a very inefficient system. We have a Chevy Volt that it runs on our solar farm out in the country. But it's incredibly backward technology. And a group had developed a battery that was, instead of 900 pounds, 100 pounds that would charge in 15 minutes. That would take okay. But it was so radical that Tesla and some of the other groups had put together, I think it was about $1 billion between 2 different groups to acquire it, and British Petroleum came in, bought it for God knows how much, and black shelved it. This is fairly recent. So these are not conspiracy theories. This happens every day. So if you have a technology and you go the conventional investor route, funding route, patent route, intellectual property route, it's DOA, dead on arrival. Now, we've seen this over and over again, going all the way back 100 years. So, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. All right? So what I want to say to these technologists and inventors is that don't keep making the same mistake. But ultimately, the money factor and the greed factor and the power factor, people wanting power and money and da-da-da, they really think they can just like be like the next Facebook guy or the next, you know, Standard Oil, Rockefeller family. That thinking is what ends up being their Achilles heel. Because ultimately, it ain't going to work that way. And someone's going to have more money and power than the next person has, and they're going to buy it out. Or it's going to get sequestered through a national security order. So the only way to do it that I can see is to do it openly, transparently, in real time. Every step of your development is uploaded to the internet, which is my proposal for the energy research and development program we want to do. Well, we don't have the funding to put that together. But if I were just to be put on the advisory board for these new energy researchers, I would say that's the first thing you have to do. The problem is many of them are trying to get funding from people who want to be able to get a return on their investment. So that gets into the question of you have to find people who are true angel investors who want to put the funds in, and they may never see a penny out. But that's very, very hard to do because, you know, it's the golden lamb sort of thing. And that's the real problem. And I think that until we learn that lesson that the last 100 years of experience has given us collectively, we're going to keep making that same mistake. And all I can do is advise. I can't force folks to do it. Man, we'll see. I would like to see someone make it through that juggernaut. But I'd be very surprised if they do using the strategies of conventional business, intellectual property, finance, and investor concepts.